I've got a good one for you today. I'm journeying down the Tex Mex road. Today I'm making Chile Colorado and some scratch-made beef fat tortillas. Mash down on it, son. Here we go. So here we have 2 chuck roasts. These are roughly 3 to 3.5 pounds each. I'm going to season these both up, and I'm going to save this one for a later video that's upcoming. So what you want to do, you want to take some of this fat down, because with this dish, it's going to be cooking in a crock pot in a slow cooker. So having a bunch of fat in there, it's just going to render out. So you don't need a ton of it. So with the Chile Colorado, I'm going for more of a Tex-Mex kind of flavor profile. So I figured, what better seasoning to use than the hardcore carnivore Tex-Mex? I got the chuck roast seasoned up. We're going to let it sit here for a bit, which will allow this rub to attach itself to the meat. It's going to pull out some moisture, and it's going to get real tacky, and then we'll take it to the smoker. So we have our chuck roast all seasoned up. They're ready to go on. All I'm going to do for this is get a little bit of smoke on it. We're going to let it raise the temperature up to about 160, 165. I don't want to render fat out of this. At that point, I'm going to pull it off, and I'm going to cut it into chunks, which will then go into our Chile Colorado. Chuck roasts are on. Let the smoker do its work. We'll check back in a little bit. So next, you need to make the broth that you're going to stew the meat in. And that consists of 1 onion. Typically, I like to use a white onion, but I don't have one in hand at the moment, so this is a yellow onion. 3 cloves of garlic. I'm going to chop these and saute them together. You are going to have 2 ancho chili peppers. I've got 4 pasilla chili peppers, and I've got 2 guajillo chili peppers. I'm going to remove the stems, take out all the seeds. I have some beef stock warming up that I will then pour over these and let them steep until they soften. We're also going to add in a couple of teaspoons of Mexican oregano and 1 to 2 teaspoons of cumin based upon your taste preference. Also, we're going to save the salt or pepper for the end once the broth is fully cooked. So with the peppers, you're just going to break them open. You want to remove all the seeds. These are dried peppers, and the seeds will get really bitter, so you really don't want that in the finished product. There we have all the seeds, and here are our chilies. All of our chilies in the bowl, and 2 cups of warm beef stock. This is a beef stock that I made. If you don't want to go through that trouble, you can always use store-bought. I'm going to let these sit here until they soften, and then we're going to add it into the blender with our other goodies and blend it up. Our peppers have steeped for about 30 minutes. Going to add in the oregano, but you want to kind of crush it up just a little bit. You don't have to go crazy with it, but this will help unlock some flavors that leaving it whole won't do. Got the onion and garlic. And a couple teaspoons of cumin. Snap on the lid. And you should wind up with a paste that's kind of the consistency of a ketchup. So there it is. Let's give that a little taste. Oh man, that is okay. So here we have our smoked chuck roast that we did ahead of time. I'm going to go ahead and separate this out into chunks, roughly like a 1/2 inch or so, 1/2 inch to 1 inch each. And since this is a chuck roast, there's going to be a giant band of fat that runs through here. You can just do your best to remove that, because a little bit of fat is good. A whole bunch of fat can really mess up the party. So there we have roughly the size of chunks you want. And this is the fat that I removed. So I've transferred the meat into a crock pot. If you have the ability to do some of this prep ahead of time, this is a real easy thing to throw together in the morning before you head off for work. And then you come home and you got some deliciousness waiting on you. I'm going to add in a couple of more cups of chicken broth. Sorry, brain glitch. That's beef broth. And we're going to add in the chili paste that we made. Give it a good mix. Got the lid on. I'm going to let this run for 8 hours on the low setting, and then I'm going to set it for an additional hour and a half to 2 hours on the high setting, and I'm going to remove the lid at that point to let some of this evaporate, and that's going to thicken up that broth. If I'm making Chile Colorado, I'm going to have to make some tortillas. So I'm going to show you a real quick, easy recipe to make some beef fat tortillas. First, 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Next, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. This is not baking soda, this is baking powder. And 2 teaspoons of salt. And to kick these tortillas up a notch, I'm going to use some beef fat. This is tallow. You can use lard if you choose to. That's traditional. But with this being a beef dish, I wanted to go with some beef fat tortillas. So this is 3 tablespoons. I'm doing this in my food processor because it makes life a whole lot easier. If you want to mix this up by hand, you can. So all I'm going to do is blend this just until it kind of comes together and sort of looks like a wet sand. Easy as that. Now I'm going to get some warm water and we're going to pour it in until it forms a ball, and then we're going to let it rest for a bit, and then we're going to make some tortillas. So I've got some warm water here. You don't need boiling water, just warm water. The purpose of the warm water is it's going to melt the fat that I put in here in the flour. And you should have a nice ball of dough now. I like using the food processor because mixing this by hand from scratch can get a bit tedious and it can really get your hands messy. So I do 80 to 90% of the mixing in the food processor, and then I do the rest of it by hand. So all I'm trying to do is kind of form a nice dough. You see it's coming together there. This is not like making dough for bread, so you don't have to be quite so vigorous on your kneading. But what I'm doing is I'm folding it over and then I'm pushing forward, folding it over, pushing forward. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. All right, so you're going to do it there. And what I'm doing is I'm using the friction of the table. I'm taking this and I'm cupping my hands under it and twisting it so it kind of brings it all together. Since we've worked this pretty hard, the gluten is real tight right now, so it needs a little bit to rest. So we're going to give it about 45 minutes to an hour to chill out in a bowl with some plastic wrap over it. If you don't put the plastic wrap over it, it can form a skin on top of it, so you don't want that. So when you put it in the bowl, put the plastic wrap directly over the top of this. And plastic wrap directly on it. Set it to the side and let it rest. All right, our dough has had a chance to relax. We're going to go ahead and remove the plastic wrap. I'm going to take this out. And we're going to section this out into roughly 40-gram balls of dough. I've got my trusty kitchen scale. I'm going to throw a plate on here, turn it on, and we're going to start weighing out the dough. So once you have the right amount of dough, you're going to start folding it under, turning it each time, turning it a quarter turn, turn, quarter turn, pinch, pinch down, bring this like that. Then you're going to use the crook of your hand and you're going to start rolling it. All right. Then you wind up with a nice dough ball. Got them on a tray, got a damp cloth, going to fold it over, let them chill out for about a half an hour. Then we're going to roll them out and throw them on the comal. Time to roll out the tortillas. So you're going to lightly dust your work area. Going to take one of these, set it there, a little extra flour on top. You want to flour your rolling pin so it does not stick. You're going to flatten this out like that. Going to roll forward, going to roll backward, going to rotate a quarter turn, roll forward, backward, and you keep doing this until it gets to the thinness that you desire. I'm amazed watching people that do this on the regular, how quickly they can do it. I am not that fast. We're going to get this on the comal, and then we're going to have our first tortilla. So you want your griddle to be roughly in the 400-degree range. You're going to take your rolled out tortilla and lay it out. You don't want a ton of flour from the workbench on it when you put it on the comal or the griddle. We're going to let it go for 15, 20 seconds on this side. You can see it beginning to bubble here. And we're going to take it and flip it over. It's still very blonde at this point. Again, once you flip it, you're going to let that go for about 30 seconds. And then flip it back over. You can see we're starting to get some browning there. And this is a dry comal. You're not putting any oil or any butter or nothing like that on it. And that's about as far as I want to take it right now. Once we actually serve the meal, I will reheat these on the comal. If you go through this process, you can make these the day before. You can just reheat them real quick. Please, I beg of you, if you're going to reheat these, do it on the stovetop, on cast iron. If you don't have a comal and you just have a cast iron skillet, you can do that. But you do not want to reheat these in the microwave. Please don't do that. We're going to let this hang out in our tortilla warmer, because as important as it is to cook here, it also needs to rest in here, kind of in a moist environment. It kind of helps to soften the tortilla up just a little bit. So here is the finished product. Got my beef fat tortillas, Chile Colorado. So since I made this while I was at work, I threw this in the crock pot, ran it on low for 8 hours. Then when I got home, pulled the lid off, let it go for like another hour and a half to 2 hours on the high setting, which helped to reduce it. It got the broth a little thick. I think it's time to give it a taste. Gonna spoon a little bit on this tortilla, kind of get the fold over on it, and let's taste it. You've got the spiciness from the peppers coming through. The onion, you can kind of taste that in the background, and the garlic is kind of punching in. Oh, wow. That's excellent. Someone asked me recently, if you couldn't eat barbecue, what kind of food would you want? And I, without question, said, I would love to eat Mexican food and Tex Mex. I'm on this journey to learn as much as I can about this type of cuisine. This was something new for me. I've not tried it. It kind of walks into that chili realm, somewhere between a chili and a stew, but it's really good. Having those dried chilies, rehydrating them in the beef stock brings a depth of flavor that you just can't get otherwise. So I will definitely be making this again in the future. If you found this video helpful, give me a like, give me a subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. And as always, get up, go out, cook some good food. Be a little bit better tomorrow than you were today, and I will catch you down the road.